All right, hi guys, how you all doing?
Hey, good.
I really, really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was absolutely wonderful. I'm going to start actually with sort of you, so Andrew and Bowen, because you've obviously worked together before. I mean, how much does that kind of help going into projects with those kind of pre-established relationships and that kind of element of trust already kind of built in?
It helps so much, you know. I think this film was very personal, and so to um, work with someone who I already can be vulnerable with, I think was like immensely helpful to me. There was also, a good deal of this film that was kind of inspired by my boyfriend, and the fact that like Bowens met him and hung out with him, I think is nice. So yeah, I think uh, it was such a joy to work with Bowen again, and I can't wait to do it again.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I feel the same. I mean, like beyond like the shorthand that we already have, it was not lost on me that Andrew had a lot of other you know, artists and collaborators he was working with, and it felt like um it felt like I got to feel really helpful in terms of like just assuaging anything that like he and I were discussing in terms of like not having to worry about it, and that because he was being pulled in so many directions as a director.
Yeah, because Bowen, I loved your performance here. It really feels like you inhabit every ounce of the role, and it breeds such a kind of truthful performance, I think. It's so vulnerable and so relatable. What's that kind of process like for you, and how much easier is it kind of when going in with such a kind of good script that already has that humanity already in, sort of inbuilt into the film?
I feel like it's so turnkey because Andrew wrote something that was so precise and yet so balanced and so open, and there was just latitude to make choices as an actor, which isn't always a given when you're given a piece of writing. But it goes back to that relationship that Andrew and I have had where um these emotional beats and these turns, I was not too concerned with executing it just because I knew that Andrew knows how to handle me in those moments. It was yeah, it was so wonderful to just worry about interpreting it and not have to figure out the other technical aspects.
Bowen went
I
birding.
went birding. I went birding and I bought books, and yeah, it was a lovely he was a lovely character to sort of throw into and live in.
And the same obviously can be said for you, Han Ji-Chon. I mean, I loved your character too, but I mean that second proposal just took me so much by surprise. What was the kind of process like for you to land this role? Was it always a sort of ambition of yours to make a film in the English language?
Uh, that's one of my really wanted questions I really wanted today. Uh, Being in the Hollywood films is was one of my dreams from the beginning, actually. Even though this is my first film, filming in English and coming to a first English country, uh, when I was in Korea, like people would say like this is the dream you couldn't make it true, and maybe that's a step you could take after you're famous in Korea. But yeah, like thanks to Andrew, like here I am in this film and sitting here. Uh, uh, I really want people to see that this is a man who made his dream come true.
Oh,
But just how different is it to kind of shooting a film in Korea?
Uh, well, this mm, one of the big differences, like I was using a different language, and um, actually, it was a very comfortable experience than I have ever imagined. I could say that acting in Korean is much harder, and another one is that Korea doesn't have a second team thing. This is my
oh,
first experience that we
wow.
have a second team.
Second team.
And also, I was amazed by those huge trailers. Yeah, I would never forget it.
I'm glad that we could make his experience comfortable.
Yeah. Well, it bred such a kind of sincere performance, I think. But going back to you, Andrew, of course, this is a remake of the kind of Angley's 1993 film. Just how important is it? Well, firstly, how important is that film? But also, what was it you wanted to adapt differently here in terms of kind of modernizing and bringing it into a kind of contextual, it make it in a kind of modern context of the world we live in today? What was at the kind of forefront of that idea?
Yeah, you know, the original film is hugely influential to me. It's the first gay film I ever saw. And the fact that it was a gay Asian film, that it was a film that showed these queer characters with a sense of humanity, like, you know, it really set me on the right path, you know, as a filmmaker to want to tell stories like this. You know, and so in a weird way, that's what made me not want to reimagine it, but then also made me want to. And I think what really gave me that push, you know, to finally to make the film is that I realized like so much has changed for the queer community, you know, since 1993, and I wanted to be able to talk about kind of how queer family grows, you know, and not accidentally, but kind of intentionally. How make those choices? And so that was the real kind of driving force. And, you know, a lot of it is kind of personal and questions that I'm thinking about as, you know, I've entered this life phase thinking about, getting married and having kids. You know, I think that was the way that I knew I could make this film feeling like I wasn't just trying to imitate or, you know, rehash, a beloved movie.
Because I mean, this obviously feel like this is now having this kind of wonderful freedom of kind of expression in the arts to be able to tell stories like this, and obviously the likes of Fire Island as well, and put them out into the world. So, how much do you think you kind of owe to the likes of Ang Lee? Do you still feel like you're kind of standing on the shoulders of those who kind of did this, 40 years ago, 30, 40 years ago?
Of course, yeah. You know, I think it's important for any artist to understand the legacy that they're a part of, you know, and I really embrace that. And I don't pretend to be the first, you know, because I think like I don't actually think that that's fun, you know. I really like being able to honor the films that have influenced me and that have inspired me. And hopefully this film will go on to inspire filmmakers in the future. You know, I think filmmaking is such a collaborative art form. You know, I think there's a kind of macro, you know, community collaboration that's happening where we're inspired by each other. And so yeah, I try not to have an ego about it. I'm very happy to be, you know, standing on other people's shoulders, and I'm very happy to have people stand on mine.
And I don't usually say this because I'm often a champion of kind of less is more, but given the kind of strength of character here and the kind of different dynamics across this wonderful ensemble, it really did feel like there was even scope here for a kind of series. Was that ever discussed? Was that ever under consideration to do that?
You know, not at all. But other people have said that, you know, and I think like I would 100% watch the Bowen Yang Chris Birding episode, that bottle episode, right? Like of course. But yeah, you know, I love that people think about these characters and what else they might do in their lives, because it means that they feel like real human beings.
And I was going to just quickly, because just to the actors again, I mean, you know, there's some wonderful performances here from yourselves, but I just wanted to speak about the women as well that do such wonderful jobs. Can you just talk a little bit to having Kelly and having them both really as your kind of on-screen partners here, and how much easier it made both of your jobs?
I mean, it was so easy to just kind of bounce off of them. Because so much of the Chris and Min relationship is defined by how they relate to Angela and Lee, and
like proposing scenes, like their reactions should come up, and that bonds with us, our characters also. So.
Yeah, I mean, and the way that those four characters are written is so so real and is so interesting. And I kind of enjoyed thinking about the way Chris figures into this arrangement that ends up driving the movie, where he kind of feels a little peripheral, or he doesn't feel totally consequential or essential to this. And so that was a really fun thing to sort of figure out alongside like the three of you guys, where it felt like you guys were all working through this problem together. I don't know, there were just so many different pushes and pulls that I felt very lucky to.
Yeah. And just very, very quickly before I go, because I know I just want to end on such on a nice note, because Andrew, I adored your recounting of the first day on the set of the Korean wedding and how it kind of made you burst into tears. I just wanted to ask quickly before I leave, what was it about that day, especially, and what it represented, that had such a profound effect on you?
Oh God, yeah. I think it was the fact that I didn't realize until that moment that in many ways what I had done was create a situation where I could have a Korean wedding. That's something that I wanted. And I saw the cast come down like wearing their hanboks, and I was just so overwhelmed by how beautiful they looked and how much I wanted that. And it was like I was a disaster. It was a bit messy, but I could tell that this cast really saw how much it meant to me, and then they acted their little hearts out, and I'm so thankful.
Well, the result is a wonderful movie. So thank you so much, guys, for talking to me today.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey you guys!
Hey, that's what they all say.
Hey you guys!
Hey, you guys!